Hi mates, how's it going? In today's video, chapter 14 of Rise of the Horde by Christy Golden. Before we start, just want to say thanks to everyone. I was a bit worried about the talkie video a few weeks ago, but then you all just bombarded me with lovely comments. It was much appreciated. Now let's go! That night, Durotan had quite a bit of trouble trying to sleep, and Draka tossed and turned next to him, grunting and sighing, obviously having quite a bit of trouble trying to sleep as well. Eventually, Durotan just gave up and lay awake, thinking about the events of the day. Everything in him screamed that it was wrong to embrace this warlock path, but what could he do? The elements had deserted the orcs. The Draenei would wipe them out if they didn't have some form of magic to defend themselves. Durotan then got up, left the tent and sat by a fire, and started to comfort eat. But a courier then rode past, tossing a scroll to Durotan before riding off, and the Frostwolf chieftain unfolded it and sighed as he read its contents. There is to be another meeting in 2 days. The chieftains will gather to elect a leader who will speak for you all, make decisions for you all. A war chief. Make sure you bring ID and your own pencil or something. You might as well stay home. The outcome is decided anyway. You didn't used to be so cynical. I did not used to live in such times. But in his heart, Durotan knew Draka was right. There was only one orc that was well known enough, charismatic enough, to win sufficient votes. Blackhand. Grommash Hellscream might give him a bit of a run for his money, but he was too impulsive. It was Blackhand's shaman that had become the first warlocks, and his clan had won more victories against the Draenei than anyone else. And sure enough, 2 days later, Durotan watched with dull eyes as the votes of the clan chieftains were tallied, and Blackhand of the Blackrock clan was elected war chief. Durotan didn't even bother to object. What was the point? He could already feel the eyes on him, suspiciously watching for any sign of disloyalty. At one point, Durotan looked over at Orgrim, standing seemingly steady and supportive next to his leader. However, Durotan knew Orgrim better than anyone, when he saw the slight frown on his old friend's face. It seemed like he was just as unhappy with the decision, but he too was in no position to object. One could only hope that as second in command, Orgrim may be able to mitigate some of the damage Blackhand was almost definitely going to cause. Blackhand himself stood with false modesty, waving and smiling at the cheering crowd. My orcish brothers and sisters, you honour me. I will prove a worthy war chief of this vast sea of noble warriors. Day by day, we improve our weapons and our armour. And now, we reject the unpredictable elements and embrace true power. Power that our warlocks control. They wield it without grovelling or begging to anyone or anything. This is liberation. This is strength. We are of one purpose. Wipe the Draenei from our lands. They will be unable to resist this tide of warriors and warlocks. We are their worst nightmare. To battle! For the Horde! And the crowd went mental. Durotan and Draka didn't hang around much longer after that. They buggered off because they were both disgusted. But the shaman remained behind for several days for training. And when they returned, Durotan could see that they stood taller and prouder already. This new magic had given them all back their faith in themselves. And for that, Durotan was grateful. He loved his clan. They were good peeps. It had been difficult seeing them broken and disheartened. The Frostwolf warlocks practiced their skills on beasts at first, joining hunting parties. The attacked creatures seemed to suffer just as much agony as the Draenei prisoner had, which Durotan wasn't a big fan of. But after a while, the creatures seemed to suffer less. They were in just as much pain, but the warlocks had levelled up a bit, killing faster and more efficiently. Scrolls arrived at the Frostwolf encampment almost daily as well. Blackhand was obviously having a whale of a time as war chief. Durotan had to admit, though, receiving regular updates about things was appreciated. But one day, someone other than a courier arrived at the Frostwolf camp. Durotan recognised their garb. It was one of Blackhand's personal warlocks, Kirkul. Chieftain, a word with you from the war chief. Durotan nodded and motioned Kirkul to follow him, and they walked for a bit until Durotan felt certain they would not be overheard. What is it? The Blackhand sends one of his most important warlocks to me. I'm riding to all of the clans. The tone of Kirkul's voice said it all. The Frostwolves were not being particularly honoured. Know your place, peasant. The most important factor in our eventual and glorious victory over the Draenei is numbers. They are few, we are many. But we need to be more. So what is it Blackhand wants? Shall we leave off fighting for mating? Start pumping out more soldiers? Not leave off fighting, but yes. Encourage your warriors to procreate. You will receive accolades for each child that is born to your clan. That will help. But we need more warriors right now, not 6 years from now. Durotan stared in stunned silence. He'd actually been joking. What the bloody hell was going on?
Summon all your younglings. I don't understand. Summon them for what?
Kukul sighed, as if Durotan himself was just a foolish child.
I have the ability to accentuate their growth. We will push them forward a bit. If we take all the children who are between 6 and 12 now, age them to 12, we will increase the numbers of warriors on the field by almost 50%.
Absolutely not.
It's not a choice, chieftain. It's an order. Any clan that refuses will be branded traitors. Exiled. You and your mate will be executed. Is that what you want?
Again, Durotan stared in stunned silence, although he was now quite clearly shaking with anger.
So you'd rob them of their childhood then? For their future? Yes. I will drain a little of their lives. Only 6 years' worth. They will come to no harm. The Blackrock children were fine. Blackhand insisted his 2 sons and daughter be the first to be honoured. In return, your young ones will be able to fight for the glory of the Horde now. They can make a difference.
Durotan wasn't in the least surprised Blackhand had permitted this to be done to his own children. And not for the first time, Durotan was kind of glad he didn't have any. The only saving grace was that there were only a few kids in the Frostwolf clan. 5, between the ages of 6 and 12. Still felt like 5 too many, but what choice did he have?
Do what you must do. For the Horde. I said, for the Horde.
The next thing that happened was barbaric. Kukul cast a spell on the 5 Frostwolf children. It took everything in Durotan to force himself to remain impassive as the kids writhed in pain. Bones were stretched, muscles burst in unnatural growth, and yet the expression on Kukul's face was ecstatic. He bloody loved it. For an awful moment, Durotan found himself wondering if the warlock was going to stop at 12 or just carry on until the children were shriveled husks. But thankfully, he did stop. And the orcs, who mere moments ago were small children, now stood there like,
alright, mortgages, tax returns and stuff.
And Durotan turned to Kukul.
You've done what you came to do, now f*** off. What? Chieftain, you can't talk to me like I said f*** off.
Durotan then shoved Kukul hard, and the warlock went tumbling backwards.
Blackhand will not be pleased to hear of this.
And the Frostwolf chieftain knew any words that came out of his mouth would doom his clan, so he just walked off. For a while after that event, no further requests had come to the Frostwolf clan. Durotan had been both relieved but also concerned about that, and his concerns were absolutely justified with the arrival of a new missive.
Old friend, I'm sure it comes as no surprise that you're being watched. They will set a task for you, one that they know you can complete. You must do it, mate. Don't refuse.
There was no signature, but Durotan knew it was Orgrim's handwriting. He'd taken quite the risk sending this, but his friend's warning had arrived just in time because that afternoon another courier arrived, handed Durotan a message, and then just kind of stared at him.
Thanks. I've been instructed to wait for a reply.
So Durotan went ahead and read yet another letter.
You have now had time to see the skills of our newly trained warlocks in action. It is time to take the attack to our enemies. The Draenei city of Telmor is close to your borders. Orgrim has told me that as boys, the 2 of you entered that city, that you saw the secret of how the Draenei keep themselves unseen. Orgrim also tells me that your memory is excellent, and you will no doubt remember how to expose the city for an assault. I'm sure I don't have to tell you what destroying this city would mean to the Horde, and to the Frostwolf clan. Reply to this letter immediately so we can begin preparations. For the Horde.
Durotan was bloody furious. How could Orgrim reveal such information and put Durotan on the spot like that? But his anger subsided somewhat when he realised this information, the way the city was hidden, Durotan's uncanny memory, that could have been dropped in conversation at any point over the last God knows how many years. It wasn't necessarily so much that Orgrim had sold him out. It was more likely that Blackhand was just intelligent enough to pick up these little nuggets of information and store them away for future use. The threat in the letter was pretty blatant. If Durotan agreed, he'd prove his loyalty. If he refused, probably wouldn't end so well. So once again, Durotan made the only decision he could possibly make.
I accept. For the Horde. The war chief will be pleased. I was told to give you the following.
The courier then reached into their little man purse, pulled out a sack and handed it to Durotan.
Your warriors and your warlocks will need to train with these.
Durotan immediately recognised the contents of the sack. The crystals he'd taken from Velen. Ironic. He was now expected to use them against the very people he'd taken them from in the first place. A few days later, the war party gathered at the Frostwolf encampment. Most of the warlocks and warriors were from the Blackrock clan, but there were a few war songs and some shattered hand. The mistrust and contempt from these visitors towards the Frostwolves was pretty obvious, and Durotan knew it was no accident that they were all from the most martial clans. They were there to make sure the Frostwolves didn't do anything stupid. By daybreak, a small army of orcs were on the move, with Durotan and Orgrim up front, riding side by side.
Been a long time since we passed this way. I'm not even sure we're going the right way. This forest has changed. Grown. I remember the way.
Soon enough, Durotan brought his wolf to a halt and dismounted. It was definitely around here somewhere. He couldn't help but hope that the Draenei had remembered that they'd exposed their secret all those years ago, and maybe changed their weird magical crystal's hiding place. But, as he knelt down in the place that Restalan had done so many years ago, there it was. There was no turning back now.
We found it. Everyone, get into position.
The stone was really calming to hold. It was almost as if it was comforting Durotan, despite what was about to happen. Durotan then took a deep breath, and recalled the words that Restalan had spoken.
Segala Dula, Magala Bula, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo.
And the grand illusion veiling the city of Telmore faded away. And we're leaving it there! Oh dear. Methinks a whole bunch of Draenei are about to have a pretty crap day. Link in the description if you're interested in buying the book, as well as for my Discord and my Patreon too. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that bollocks. And all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!